Morning, guys. Sorry I'm looking a little rough today. We are hosting a Halloween party this weekend, and I've been working my butt off. As you can see, I brought my friend with me today, and I've got like lights behind me, and it's just been crazy and been super busy. But anyways, I wanted to talk to y'all today about Disney. So I told you last week's video that I was going to Disney this past weekend, and I did, and we had a great time. But I really want to focus on how they handled Hurricane Mathew. Our home down in Miami was fine, thank goodness. Obviously, where I am now. And we considered canceling our trip because of the weather, and it was supposed to hit Orlando worse than it did here. And we looked out. It just ended up being some rain and wind. There were some pretty strong gusts of wind. But all in all, it was okay. However, we didn't realize that, beforehand, that it was going to be fine. So it was really interesting just to see how Disney handled the whole thing. So we did stay at a Disney hotel. So just to mention, prior to the storm, Zika is a huge thing down here in Florida. The prevention of it without messing up tourism. We've had a ton of cases where the city hasn't been telling the public that more cases have been found because they don't want to mess up tourism any more than they already have. Disney is huge for families. Their pregnant women, I'm sure, go to Disney all the time, and the rides pregnant women can ride for the most part. But anyways, everywhere you went, as far as the shops and throughout the parks, they would have these little stands with a big bottle is what I'm trying to do here, with bug spray, I guess, bug repellent of some sort. Totally telling you, and there were signs, hey, please use this. And there were signs throughout the park saying that they had been spraying. They were doing all they could to prevent mosquitoes. And I'm a Georgia girl. Like I said in one of my prior videos, I get bit all the time down here. Sorry, my dad called. So yeah, I get bit all the time down in Miami. But thankfully, I didn't get bit once in Orlando, and it was so nice. So everyone knew about the storm. Everybody was keeping an eye on things. You couldn't go to a bar, to a restaurant, to the park without hearing a little whisper. Have you heard anything? Is there anything new? Which I don't know where you're from, but if you're aware or not. But things change from like 1 week to day of. With hurricanes, tropical storms, it changes drastically. You can't really predict what's going to happen, but they try. They try to get everybody prepared. They did evacuations in Georgia and in parts of Florida, and I mean, they do the best they can to get people out of the way, and things are always changing. One thing about Disney, most people are tourists. Most tourists have never had to deal with a hurricane or the after effects, or they don't know what's going on. They know you need food and water, basics. So a lot of people canceled their plans. A lot of people headed out of town early. I get it. So the night before it happened, we were sitting at the bar of our hotel at maybe like 4 in the afternoon. The lockdown came at 7. We were supposed to stay in our rooms. Stock up on some food and some drinks, but I'll get to in a minute. But we were sitting at the bar. The bar was crowded. This poor soul was working his butt off, trying to make everybody happy and get them their drinks and stuff. And we were supposed to close. He was supposed to close the bar at 5, but it was so packed. He stayed until I think a little after 7. People got really upset when he was like, "I'm sorry, I gotta go home." Like, this man had to get home and get on lockdown himself. So, which we found out that Disney had offered all of their employees to spend the night there, and I think they offered them rooms and stuff, so that was pretty cool, which they would need employees to stay and help with all the people. Anyways, but this lady came up to the bar and was sitting next to me and talking to someone else, but I overheard her, and her husband had went and rented a Jeep earlier in the day, thinking that a Jeep would get them out of town. They were from Colorado. And he came back. It was him and his wife and their little kid, maybe 4 or 5. And, he didn't realize that the police were out and about, and evacuation was under order for South Florida. And most of South Florida, depending on where you're going, you go through, if you don't take 95, you go through Orlando. So traffic was a mess. Gas stations were packed. Grocery stores were out of food, or not out of food necessarily, but low on food and low on water stuff. I mean, that's just how it goes. People started fighting, not physically fighting, and it was more so couples, which I get if you have kids there and they're saying everything's going to be shut down. Tensions were very high. People were loading up on food and alcohol. It was crazy. Like, there, at the hotel we were staying at, there's like a big food court, cafeteria type thing, and had a couple different options. It was packed. Like, you could barely get in. The line zigzagged, body on body. I mean, you couldn't tell where the line began or where it ended. And it was utter chaos. Those employees, again, worked their butts off. Credit to them. They worked really hard to get everybody in and out as quickly as possible, which was not very quickly, but they weren't ready to some extent. Like, they didn't know we'd be put on a lockdown, and, so, food was being handed out. People were carrying, like, big things of little, like, lunch bags, I guess, with snacks for kids and little sandwiches and stuff, and they had, like, 36 of them for a family of 4. Like, they would be locked down for, like, days. I'm like, it was Disney. I'm sure, worst case scenario, they'd bring chips and water to your room if we were on lockdown for days and lost power or whatever. So Disney had to shut down the park on, let's see, all this stuff with the bar and the food and everything happened Thursday evening. We all kind of went on lockdown. Everybody was in their rooms early. Friday, the parks were shut down, but we got up Friday morning, the storm. It was really windy Thursday night. And then it rained on and off a little bit, like sprinkle rain. It was primarily some wind. But Disney really stepped up their customer service the next day. They had employees everywhere trying to help people out. They did serve some limited breakfast and limited lunch and stuff. So that was pretty cool. And everybody was super friendly and super helpful. And they opened up the arcade, which was really cool because all these kids and there was nothing to do but sit in the room. They opened up the arcade. They didn't charge most of the games. Like 90% of the games were free, which was awesome for the kids. We avoided that area because it was packed, as you can imagine. They also played some Disney movies in the lobby for the kids. For the most part, everything was still shut down. They had a little gift shop, which opened later in that evening, as did Downtown Disney Springs. And that place, as you can imagine, was insane. People trying to get out of there, get out of the rooms, get out of the hotel, go do something. I heard the term, people were going magic band crazy. Oh, no, excuse me. Magic band wild. Girls Gone Wild. But magic band wild. Because, you have a wristband and that's your credit card's hooked up to it essentially. And so you go to get food or drinks or whatever and they just scan that. And it's awesome in my personal opinion. But, yeah, people were just going, getting drinks, getting food at the bar. Places were packed out. It was interesting for sure. But, Disney really, in my personal opinion, stepped up the game. They handled it as best as they could. And I think they did a good job. The last thing I'll comment on, the next day, all the parks were open, which was cool. And we were at, Epcot, I guess. And, speaking of phones, we all got an Amber Alert, which if you have an iPhone at least, I would assume other phones do the same, but it's a very distinct sound when you get an Amber Alert, and it sounded like a tornado warning going off throughout the park, like this loud siren blaring sound. And at first everybody's like looking around like what's going on, and then we realized it's everybody's phones. But there were so many people with their phones turned up in the entire park that all went off at the same time. That was crazy. It was funny. But yeah. So anyways, thanks for hanging out, listening to my story. I've got to hang out with this guy and get some more decorating done and so much stuff. But anyways, till next time, thanks for hanging out. I'm gonna get stuff done. Bye guys.